Inside the last half an hour of the SportsMax Zone now for this Monday, switching to cricket on the SportsMax Zone. Reigning World 50-over champions England have added the T20 World title to their cabinet after beating Pakistan by 5 wickets in Sunday's grand final at the Melbourne Cricket Ground in Australia. Pakistan batted first and posted 137 for 8 of 20 overs against man of the match Sam Curran's 3 for 12 or 4. Ben Stokes then struck an unbeaten 52 to guide England to 138 for 5 with 6 balls to spare. Fazeer Mohammed joins us now. Faz, when we were previewing this match on Friday, you did suggest that it was a toss-up, and we did feel that it was tight going, and maybe how each team started in their batting lineup could be an indicator to how the game panned out. But I guess although Curran was man of the match, Ben Stokes' appetite for the big moment was again on show.
Recognize that, as we talked about wasteful just now in that headline that seems to have troubled everybody, England didn't waste their opportunity when Shaheen Shah Afridi got injured. And I think that when you really look at it, given the fact that, as we just saw in that abbreviated scorecard, he had 1 for 13 from 2 overs and 1 ball. And it is reasonable to think that he would not have been carted all over the place, as happened when he couldn't complete that third over and someone else had to do it for him. And that gave England that bit of breathing room that was necessary. And credit, of course, to Ben Stokes, Moeen Ali, really taking advantage of that opportunity. So, yeah, you can't really take anything away from England with the squad that they've got. The cosmopolitan nature of the squad sends another message to all those one-eyed individuals in the UK and so on. But again, they are the first team to hold both white ball titles at the same time. And it tells you, when you plan, when you prepare, when you fund your program, because there's no issue as far as funding when it comes to the ECB. So when you plan properly, even as it happens to be impacting on the Test cricket effectiveness, this is the success that you enjoy.
Yeah, and a quick comment came from Darren Sammy, the West Indies captain who had led the West Indies to 2 T20 titles, and he was high in praise for England, describing them as a real complete team. And then, of course, he spoke highly of Ben Stokes' efforts as well in lifting the title for them. But his emphasis on the analysis of England was how all-round the team was and how complete they were as a unit.
Absolutely, and I think that's what we touched on Friday in looking ahead, not just looking for a good start from the openers. That didn't happen. Credit to the Pakistan bowlers, because we also touched on that their ability to move the ball at pace would have presented a different challenge, and so it appeared. But then again, Adil Rashid picked up a couple of vital wickets, including Babar Azam. So in almost every department, you're talking about the top order, which didn't fire, the middle order, which had some challenges, but the lower part of the middle order with Ben Stokes and company, you always had somebody who was a potential match winner. And it's turned out yet again, as it did in that pulsating 50-over final in the World Cup at Lords of 2019, with less dramatic circumstances, that Ben Stokes has delivered once again. And it speaks to an individual who has a sense of the big occasion, because sometimes when that occasion, you're there in that big occasion, you see individuals almost freeze in the headlights, while others relish that moment. Clearly, in the case of Ben Stokes, he relishes it.
Yeah, well, fans, don't go anywhere, because there is major news to discuss, and we're continuing now on that story where West Indies' poor performance at the ICC T20 World Cup. At least 8 West Indies players are set to be released from their IPL franchises, we're told. Evan Lewis is released by Lucknow Super Giants, and Romario Shepherd's released by Sunrisers Hyderabad are the only ones confirmed to date. It is understood, though, that Andre Russell and Sunil Narayan have taken a pay cut to remain on the books of Kolkata Knight Riders. Meanwhile, the Rajasthan Royals are in trade talks with Lucknow Super Giants for Jason Holder. Faz, how should we interpret this, and how much of a wake-up call is this for the West Indies players?
Well, I don't know how much of a wake-up call it is, because if we haven't heard the alarm bells ringing for so many weeks and months, I don't know if this is really going to make that much of a difference. But we're talking about a market environment, a marketplace, and we know a World Cup, like the Football World Cup starting on Sunday, it's your biggest stage. Of course, you want to perform for your country, that is central, but you also know that this impacts on your market value subsequently, and the West Indies fell flat. When it comes to not just the fact that they fell flat, but the manner in which they fell flat, losing comprehensively to Scotland, losing comprehensively to Ireland, looking to be all at sea. And yes, we might argue that individually these players can be match winners with their franchises, but when you've got other players in other countries and other lesser lights really delivering, then you know your neck is on the chopping block, because it is a harsh environment. If you can't cut it in the most competitive, in the most highly valued financially and otherwise franchise cricket tournament, don't expect to be around with other players performing when it comes to the time to make that cut. Don't expect to be around.
Yeah, I hear you, Faz, and it's a story that jolted me when I saw it this afternoon, because I'm still wondering, even accepting what you've just said, if there is something else behind this story. Because if you talk about the World Cup failure for the West Indies and so on, I guess it strengthens your point that a couple of the players mentioned here about taking pay cuts, Andre Russell and Sunil Narine, weren't even on the West Indies team. And, my impression is that they've had a good relationship with the Knight Riders, because they do play for the Kolkata Knight Riders and also the Trinidad and Tobago Knight Riders in the domestic CPL. But they didn't do well for the TKR. The TKR didn't do well either in the CPL. So might that be a whole part of the non-production of some of these players?
Inevitably. That is one thing you're never going to be able to beat at all, it's age. At some point, look, we've seen even Tom Brady with the NFL, arguably the greatest quarterback to ever play the game, retired, then unretired, and he's been struggling. He won a game over the weekend. But invariably, at some point, the performances start to diminish. And you're in a tough market environment. As much as Andre Russell and Sunil Narine, remember Sunil Narine's first season with KKR, they not only won the title, but he was the outstanding player. And then they won it again in a couple of years after that, with him again being the outstanding player. But at some point, the decision makers are going to have to say, well, okay, Sunil Narine, Andrew Russell, you're still of value to us, but not to that financial level. So either you take a cut or we'll have to release you. And that's their choice, with discussion with their agents or whoever as to what are the options, and they want to stay with KKR. Yeah. So therefore you take that pay cut because you want to be there still.
Okay, we've got to leave it now, Faz, but just quickly before you go, do you think that from an IPL standpoint and the financial contracts with these players, we have seen players being overpriced, and this is part of the IPL's move to probably regularize some of the income and the funds that they have to dole out?
Yes, we have. And this shouldn't be a surprise, because we see that in English Premier League, we see that in any global sport, where the hype takes over for a while, players are overpriced, and then you see the reality. And then that reality comes home where you need to be prudent financially. And that's what I think we're seeing now, apart from the fact that the West Indies' stature has diminished considerably.
Faz, always a pleasure talking to you on the SportsMax Zone. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Okay, so Faz and getting his views there. George and Mariah, the impact of this story and the general feeling that we've seen for decades now from a lot of the West Indies players that they don't need West Indies cricket. They've got the IPL and some of the other global franchises. Does this change the equation any?
Well, it is a wake-up call. I have to say it is a wake-up call. And now the IPL, by doing this, in turn helps West Indies cricket, because it kind of puts a stamp on the players that you have to do well for your country, else you're going to just get almost nothing.
Human beings are creatures of comfort. We want to find places where we are comfortable. There is no shortage of T20 cricket available around the world to be played. So I don't think this will cause people to be more loyal to West Indies cricket, because it's not the loyalty that they're falling down on, it's the quality of the performances. What this will do, this is a game changer, because the IPL, at the rates that they paid the players, every other franchise competition, even though they couldn't pay the same rates that the IPL offered, they structured and scaled what they offered based on what the IPL offered. So if the IPL asks players who remain to take pay cuts and dispenses with some players, clearly the other competitions can then revise downwards their pay scale, especially for the West Indies, because they're saying, well, you can't say, well, you can't come to me because you're going to big money IPL because there's no big money IPL for you to go to. Or even if you have a contract with an IPL franchise, you can't say that I should pay you X because you're getting Y with the IPL franchise. So it is a game changer in terms of the industry pay structure. And I wish it could mean that these players would play better for the West Indies, which is what I'm most concerned with.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, but that can't help it.
Yes.
And yeah, so that's that.
That's the hope for me.
Okay, end of cricket discussion. Some NBA to come. Back with more on the zone after this.